All right, let's dive into a topic that really affects every single one of us, but is so often wrapped up in silence and stigma: mental health. Today, we're going to tackle some of the biggest myths out there and replace them with facts so we can all get a much clearer picture of what mental illness is and what it isn't.
This quote just cuts right to the heart of it, doesn't it? We talk about physical stuff, blood pressure, a broken bone, over dinner, and nobody bats an eye. It's just normal. It's medical. But for some reason, that same casual, supportive chat about our mental health is, well, usually missing.
So what's the deal? Why do we hesitate to talk about anxiety the way we talk about allergies? Well, the answer goes way, way back. It's rooted in a long history of stigma and just plain old misinformation. To really get why this stigma is so sticky, we have to look at where these ideas even came from. And trust me, these aren't just modern-day biases. Their roots run deep through history and culture.
For centuries, things we now understand are medical conditions were explained away in some pretty wild ways. In ancient times, it might have been blamed on demonic possession. Later on, it was framed as a character flaw, a personal weakness, which led to people being pushed to the edges of society. And even today, let's be honest, the media often gets it totally wrong, painting people with mental illness as dangerous or unpredictable. And those images, they stick. They fuel the silence.
Okay, so now for the fun part. Let's start busting some myths. We're going to go head-to-head with some of the most common and most damaging misconceptions out there, armed with cold, hard facts. This is a huge one. It's a myth that makes people feel incredibly isolated, Like, if you're struggling, you must be the only one. But the reality? It's a completely different story.
1 in 5. Just let that sink in. 1 out of every 5 adults in the U.S. experiences a mental illness each and every year. We're talking about nearly 60 million people. So, no, it's not rare. It's not something that happens to other people. It's our neighbors, our coworkers, our family, and sometimes it's us.
Ugh, this next myth is maybe the most harmful of them all. It's that voice that tells people to just snap out of it or try harder. It puts all the blame on the person who's suffering instead of seeing what's really going on. The reality is so much clearer. Mental illnesses are medical conditions, period. Just like heart disease or diabetes, they're caused by a complex mix of things: your genes, your brain chemistry, trauma, your environment. It has absolutely nothing to do with the lack of willpower.
We see this one in movies and on TV all the time, the stereotype that people with mental health conditions are inherently violent. It creates so much unnecessary fear and division, but it's a damaging cliché that just isn't based in fact.
In fact, the data shows the complete opposite is true. An adult living with a severe mental illness is over 10 times more likely to be the victim of a violent crime. Let that sink in. They're far more likely to be on the receiving end of violence, not the ones causing it.
And finally, there's this really disheartening myth that a diagnosis is a life sentence, that there's no hope. This idea is just so demoralizing, and it can stop people from ever reaching out for help that could completely change their lives.
But recovery is real. It's absolutely possible, and it looks different for everyone. For some people, yeah, it might mean their symptoms go away entirely. But for many others, it's about learning to manage symptoms and lead a full, meaningful life with a new sense of resilience and control. People can and absolutely do thrive.
So, what happens when we let these myths run wild? This isn't just talk. The silence and the stigma have real, tangible, and sometimes devastating consequences for individuals and for all of us. On a personal level, stigma can make someone delay getting help because they're afraid of being judged. It can lead to real-world discrimination in things like jobs and housing. It causes bullying, it strains relationships, and it can even take a toll on your physical health. And the cost to all of us? It's staggering. We're talking about $1 trillion. That's what the global economy loses every single year in productivity, just from depression and anxiety alone. So this isn't just a personal issue. It's a massive economic one. Okay, we've laid out the problem. But here's the good news. We can do something about it. All of us have a part to play in fighting stigma and creating a world that's more supportive. So let's talk about the path forward. It all starts early, in our schools. We can teach mental health right alongside physical health. We can give teachers the training they need to spot the early signs that a student might be struggling. And we can create safe spaces where kids can just take a minute to breathe and recharge. And that same idea applies to our jobs. Workplaces can help by making it normal to talk about this stuff. by offering mental health days, just like sick days, and making sure everyone knows where to find resources. This has to come from everyone, from the CEO all the way down.
So what about in our own lives? Well, the most powerful things you can do are often the simplest. You don't have to be a therapist, you just have to be a friend. Really listen without judging. Ask open-ended questions. Don't try to solve their problems, just offer your support. It's that simple, and it makes a huge difference.
Ultimately, it all boils down to this one simple, powerful truth. Mental health is health. It isn't something separate. It's all connected, and it's time we start treating it with the same seriousness, the same compassion, and the same lack of stigma as physical health.
By swapping myths with facts and trading silence for support, we can change lives. We can even save lives. So the question I want to leave you with is this: what conversation will you start?